Thank you.
So, Jude, when we talk about a subject like gamers saving the planet, we're not talking about Master Chief fighting off the Covenant. This is actual real people saving the planet, right?
It's real people saving the planet.
So maybe the place to start is by getting into who those real people are. I mean, gamers are a very different tribe in 2022 than they were 20 years ago. Who are gamers today?
Yeah.
Who are we talking about?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a topic that needs to be demystified. So, we typically think of a gamer as being, teenage boys playing war games in their bedrooms, and typically think about console games as well. But gaming today is everyone. It's all ages, all around the world. And mobile gaming is the biggest category out of all the gaming platforms. When we look at gamers, the average age is now 37, which is very different to 20 years ago. It's now 50-50 male-female. And a lot of this has been driven from mobile gaming. So we look at developing parts of the world, you look at Africa, India, you look at Latin America, and more access to mobile devices, more access to the internet means that one of the number one things we do on our mobile phones is play games, and it's a free or cheap form of entertainment. So it's now open to everyone, making it very diverse.
All right, I think that's an important point, that we're really talking about a global audience here and not just in wealthy nations where they have high-powered consoles. This is a global market with lots of different people in it.
Yeah, it's everyone. It's so the diversity and inclusiveness of gaming is something which I think is a real key point to what we're trying to do here.
So we also have diversity in the actual medium. So we're not just talking about games that entertain, which are still good, and there's plenty of those, but we're talking about games that can do something else. So is that actually possible? Like, can a game actually teach or engage or inspire?
Yeah, definitely. So for the past 20 years, my main focus has been looking at how games could be used as another purpose other than just pure entertainment. So how can we use games for education, for training, for behavior change, as a communication channel to find out what people feel about certain topics. Right. So, and gaming is only going to go one way, which means we've got more people to engage with, more people to talk to, and more people to make real change with.
Well, one of the areas right now that we really need to talk to people about, and we need to make some changes when it comes to climate change and all these important issues. So can you just give us the quick background of how you got connected into this topic area and how games and climate came together?
Yeah, sure. So it all started when Cassie, who unfortunately was meant to be here today but couldn't make it. So Cassie from UNDP and her team got in touch with us and said, we've got a real challenge. We need to help people understand what the NDCs are, the National Determined Contributions. And we were like, what is that? It doesn't sound very cool. It doesn't sound very sexy. How do you then educate people about what the NDCs are? So the NDCs are the contributions that each country have made to reduce global warming. And what Cassie and her team were trying to do was find out, educate people on what the options are and find out what they cared about so that they can then take this information to world leaders to say, these are the things that matter to people. These are the policies that you need to change around climate change. And the quickest and most scalable way to do it was through gaming, hence why she came to us to help her out.
Right.
And so here we had this combination of the UN and gaming, which seems like the unlikely partnership. But when you think about the urgency of the topic and how vast it is, then gaming is the perfect solution to tackle something like climate.
I love that idea, that approach, that, hey, we've got something that is on some levels a very esoteric and difficult subject like the NDCs. We can use this game, we can use this medium as a tool for reaching people to talk about this. So you worked with the UN on a project called Mission 1.5.
Yes.
Tell us what it is.
Yeah, so Mission 1.5 is essentially what we do at PlayMob is make mini playable adverts, which are built with social science. But the whole point of them being small, like mini, they're 2 minutes long, 1 to 2 minutes long, is that people are time poor, we've got short attention spans, and we don't want to suck a lot of people's time out of playing their day-to-day games. Right. So our playable advert fits within existing mobile games, which gives us, a vast reach of 3.5 billion people, 40% of the global population. So we take our playable ad and we roll it out within existing games. And then the player experience is, say you're playing a game like Angry Birds, you run out of lives. You're then faced with the option, do I buy more lives or do I watch an ad? And so then you can watch the ad, which is our quiz. So we can ask people questions about the topic of climate change. They answer our questions and then they go back to playing the host game with their extra lives. And then we have the data, which is around what people say and around their behavior as well, so that we can validate the data. So that allows us to engage with people in a two-way conversation, as well as having vast reach across 50-odd markets.
Right, because might be a little bit of a challenge to reach gamers by, some people in the audience might have heard of games being used for education. We're going to devise a game from the ground up to address this issue. But you're going into existing games and really popular ones, and you can reach this audience through the game mechanics and find out what they care about.
Yeah, exactly. And so our whole thinking is around go to where people are already. And we're all from gaming backgrounds, so what's really important for us is that it doesn't ruin the gaming experience. It doesn't interrupt the flow of gaming, but it enhances it. So you're getting something in return for giving us something. And so everyone wins, everyone's happy.
So you push these polls out there, you're gathering this information from the gaming audience. What did they say? What was the message, and how is that helping us in the climate?
Yeah, so what we did was we broke down the quiz into 7 policy areas to really find out what people cared about within those policy areas from 50 markets around the world. And the general consensus was it's around 6 to 8% of people thought climate change is a global emergency. And this was coming from a representative sample of 56% of the global population.
Right.
So it was, and this was all validated by Oxford University and professional pollsters. So it was real rigorous data. But we did see nuances around the world, depending on where people were. So like if you were in a landlocked country, like Iraq, for example, energy was top of mind. If you were in the UK, which is surrounded by water, then protecting waterways was top of mind. And also it would depend on what had just happened as well, because we rolled out Mission 1.5 at different times across a few months. And when there were forest fires in Australia, and it was all over the news, you could see that people really cared about reforestation and deforestation. So it really depends on where people are and what is happening in the world at the time. But the other thing that we found was there was a strong direct correlation between education level and climate change. So the demographic information we were looking at were kind of age, gender, and education level. And those who had been through education, there was a higher propensity to care about climate change than if you hadn't been through climate change. Right. And so we would see, for example, in India, someone who was in the 60+ category who hadn't been through education, cared slightly less because they had other priorities. So it didn't mean that they didn't completely care. It's just there were other priorities. And so it helped us better understand how you then talk about climate change to different demographics in a way that matters to them, because that person in India, climate change to them is going to be about making or saving money, because at the end of the day, it's about making ends meet. So it gave us real insight into different demographic buckets and how climate change affects them.
One of the things that I really love about this is that you've gathered this survey data, you've got this great demo that you've reached, and this information has actually gone into the hands of the people around the world who are actually taking action on climate change. So a gamer playing Angry Birds in South Africa is filling out this survey. Where did the survey data specifically go, and where are people acting on it?
Yeah, and this is the thing about the collaboration with the UN, is that the output of the data was really important. It wasn't just data and information for insight's sake. So the data went to world leaders. So we rolled out in 50 countries, and the data went to each of the world leaders in each of those 50 countries to say, this is what people care about in your country, and these are the policies you need to change. So it formed a report called the People's Climate Vote, and each world leader got their own version of the People's Climate Vote. But it was so popular that the G20 said, we want a G20 version. Yeah. So we created a G20 version, and the results were then presented at the G20. And now the data is being used in the IPCC report. So for us, that's kind of like the holy grail moment of gamers being seen as people, and gaming being seen as a new channel, to a new and pretty much untapped channel to be able to have these conversations with people.
Sure. But isn't there a certain irony here of, okay, we're using gaming as a way to gather this information and to actually make policy and inform people. But gaming is also an extremely power-intensive activity. It produces a lot of waste, all those plastic discs and boxes out there. Isn't there some conflict there?
Yeah, you're spot on. So we were very, very conscious of the fact that we didn't want to be solving one problem and then creating another and creating these unintended consequences. So yes, more people are going to be playing. We want more people to play so that we can educate them, engage them, and help have their voices heard. But they are consuming lots of energy at the same time. So in 2019, we set up, with UN Environment, so a different part of the UN, we co-founded something called the Playing for the Planet Alliance, which was specifically set up for this. So how can we galvanize the industry to come together to decarbonize the industry and to mobilize our audiences, our players, to take action for the planet? And it really started with Supercell had created a whole plan of how a studio can become carbon neutral, if not carbon negative. And so other studios were like, well, we'd love to do that too. So, Supercell had already gone through the time and expense of working out this model. So why not just replicate this across the studios so that they can do the same? And so the Alliance became a place where studios can share this information about becoming carbon neutral, if not carbon negative, and also how to take green game nudges. So now we've got, there's now 49 members of the Alliance, including Xbox, PlayStation, Rovio, Unity,
You got
Supercell,
all those guys in the
there.
same room together and they didn't fight.
Exactly. We were talking about this earlier, where it was just such a brilliant moment when the Alliance launched in 2019. So we launched it at the UN General Assembly, and for the first time ever, we had Xbox and PlayStation sat in the room talking about the same thing and trying to achieve the same goal. And we were all sat around this boardroom table with these studios just thinking, this is incredible. And it's only grown from there because the studios see how valuable the Alliance is and what it can do for their game studios. And so now we've got reach of 1.4 billion monthly active users to try and affect that change.
And the Alliance is also, you're working with these companies to help them find ways that they can actually work with the gamers again. Instead of taking information from them, maybe we can push content out to them. We can educate now, or we can create activists, right?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the thing. Each of these studios have got their own audiences, their own way of engaging with them. So something that's spun out of the the Alliance is the Green Game Jam. And so the Green Game Jam, it isn't like a typical jam where it's quickly coming up with new ideas for games. It's about how to create new levels or new content for games that already exist. So we've got the likes of Angry Birds have got a level in their game which has got this beautiful lush like forest land, and the piggies are trying to destroy it. Or we've got Monument Valley 2 that have got this beautiful new level which is all about reforestation. Or Supercell have got Heyday, they've got regenerative farmland inside Heyday, which is a farming game. And so the 3 months of the Green Game Jam is essentially teaching the studios about a particular topic. So it might be food, it might be forests, it might be farming. And then they go away as a studio, they think about how they implement it in their own content, in their own way. And then all the activations are live now for the Green Game Jam 2022. And so the point of it is to try and help studios think about these issues with the experts, and then they implement the content in a way that they know will be appealing to the studios.
And that really comes back to the idea of that gaming being something special as a medium, because you could just as easily spend some time writing an essay or making a TV show about deforestation. But what does a gamer get? How is the experience different from them from actually playing in that world and learning about an issue through the mechanism of gameplay?
Yeah, so I think it's not a passive experience; it's an interactive experience, and so you're putting the player into a moment where they can actually learn about it. And so when you play a game, your mind is in a state of flow. You're more open to learning, and so when you come across a new experience within the game, which might be around agriculture or food or forests, you'll play it, and it will you'll start to learn, even if it is just, slight awareness to begin with, and then it might turn into behavior nudging, and then it becomes behavior change, but it helps the player become part of the experience rather than a passive experience.
Right. And so you can actually change behavior by getting people to act out a certain behavior in a game.
Exactly. And I think we're going to have more evidence on that by the end of this year. So something that we're working on is with Unity and the Tide Foundation is looking at the impact of this green game content on players' behavior, because this sort of research hasn't been done before. But we've got the opportunity now to do this at scale with lots of different types of content. So we've just, for the Green Game Jam this year, we did a pre-study and a post-study. So the post is happening right now to look at how did players feel about this topic before they played the level and then afterwards. But the ideal for us is we want to do a longitudinal study to look at that behavioral transference over 2 or 3 years' time. So it's going to take time to really start to see if the content is bedding in. But I think this year will at least give us a guide and a snapshot of what's working and what we should be doing more of.
So part of this whole conversation is that we're using the mechanics of gaming to reach an audience that we couldn't in other ways. You can reach these mobile gamers around the world. You can reach people and get information from them. We've got an audience here that maybe we wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. What is the message that you want to take to whether there are game developers in the audience, or whether there are gamers, or maybe there are total noobs out there who don't even know what we're talking about with these games? What's the message, the takeaway for them?
Yeah, so I think for each of them, I think if you play games, then really look at if some of the games that you're playing are doing green game activations. And support them, and look at if they're pledging to become carbon neutral and how they are decarbonising. So we really want to show our support for those studios that are doing it, so that we can encourage more to follow their leads. If you're a game studio, then this content within your game can really engage with players. And so just initial snapshots of the data that we're seeing so far is that gamers want to see more green game content or more content for good. They enjoy taking positive action while they play. Some of that might be, the guilt of playing. They want to do something good, but some of it is they genuinely want to do something and feel like they've got control over a situation, or they can do something about it. But if you're a completely newbie to gaming, I think, take the time to understand what games can do, because I think they're only going to go one way. And so, think about how you can use games for education, for training, for talking to people, for gathering data. There's so much potential, and I think we're only at the beginning. We're just scratching the surface now with what games can do within this space.
So the next time I'm at home over a weekend and I want to spend the weekend playing video games and not do any of my chores around the house, can I legitimately tell my wife, hey, I'm saving the world?
Exactly. You're doing a good thing.
Thank you, Jude.
Thank you very much.